first of all, we should probably talk about the branding. And I was sort of like reluctant to comment on Twitter about it, just because it was just one of them days where Villa fans just lost their mind over nothing. So Chris Heck obviously dropped a tweet with a badge, not the badge, that the colours absolutely spot on, old timely, celebrating the claret and blue of old, and the bat for those who haven't seen, I'm sure you've all seen it by now. Obviously said AV50, which was, I mean, surely it's 150, but maybe I'm blind, I didn't see the one. That's obviously not going to be the badge, guys. Like everybody lost their mind. There's no way that is the badge, the crest that is going on the shirts and whatnot. It's it's branding to hype up, and Chris Heck doesn't tweet many things, but oh god, the Super League video just went very loud on my phone as I was trying to find it. Like if you scroll down his Twitter, you can see like this is kind of something he's done before, like same sort of hashtag, just a sort of soft launch what's going on. And yeah, as I said, fan of the colours. I actually quite like the font. I think it sort of pays homage to the the olden times, the 150 years as we're referring to, mate. And this is quite clearly just the beginning, isn't it? This isn't the final thing. This is just something to tease us and get us ready for the every kind of asset that could be dropping for this anniversary.
Yeah, man. They're probably the most, like, go back through his Twitter, the NBA like City Edition jerseys and everything that kind of comes with that, where the brands kind of often dive into their history to produce like cool jerseys. The City of Brotherly Love jerseys, which the Philly 76ers wear, you can kind of see the typeface that they put into that. And again, it's like paying his homage to the city's history and everything like that. It's quite cool. It's a very kind of similar vibe. And so, yeah, clearly the hashtag on brand thing is something that kind of runs throughout his socials. That's clearly a heckism. It's interesting that his Twitter bio says president at Aston Villa, which I don't think is right. I'm like, yeah, unless I've missed something. He's down on our website as the head of business operations. Oh, president of business operations. Fair enough. I feel like president is slightly misleading, Chris, but you do you, my man. You do you. So he dropped that, which is interesting because for someone that's head of like business operations, as someone that works in social, there's nothing worse than like when you have all these like nice assets and everything like that ready for launch, then someone goes and drops it a couple of days early and kind of ruins the launch. But he did it anyway. But the post actually went live this morning, which sees Villa countdown to our 150th anniversary celebrations, which will be taking place as of 2024 and then into the 2024-2025 season. So in January, the club gets going with a honorary anniversary board, which is made up of former players, managers, communities, fan and the club reps who will work together to plan all of the different things that are going on throughout Villa's anniversary year, which would be quite cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing who's on that. In early 2024, this is probably the biggest thing, we get the new club crest, the result of input from 16,000 Villa fans, so the website reads. So that's very exciting. We'll have take 2 on the new club crest. In the spring, we share the update on our plans for kit and merchandising for 2024-25 onwards. After Castor Gate and everything like that has gone on this season, we know that we're moving away from them at the end of the season. So we find out who our new kit manufacturers are going to be in the spring. And then in May, we formally get the party started with the anniversary at the end of the Players Awards dinner. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. The website says it promises to be an exciting year packed full of anniversary events and opportunities to share the celebration. So it's going to be a busy year next year. It's going to be really nice, hopefully. Obviously, 150 years is a massive deal for the club. I'm really excited that we're making so much noise about it because it's a big deal. And I'm really excited to see what comes of it. But yeah, the big one is that new club crest reveal in early 2024.
They've got to get it right this time, mate, haven't they? They've got to get it. I think that my issue with the last survey, and I'll be honest, I don't think I actually did this survey. I think I missed this one. But for the current badge, it very much felt like we were being walked down a path with the questioning, and that Purslow and whoever was in charge of that clearly wanted a round badge and all this stuff. And I think that's the problem when you, like, not necessarily like let fans have input, but not enough input. Like, they've gone, oh, well, we've consulted fans, but whoever the club tasked to design this, to brief this current badge at least, they all clearly had one thing in mind, and that was the round badge to be like sort of social first, all this kind of stuff, which is ironic that X then go and make yellow ticks have square profiles, isn't it? So it doesn't matter what shape your bloody badge is. And as we can see by our it's still the previous badge. We've not changed that. That our previous badge is pretty much everywhere, other than on our kit. So yeah, it's gonna. I'm apprehensive about seeing the badge. I think they will have got it right this time. I also think that Chris Heck is somebody who I think Villa fans are probably reluctant to fully trust like this early on. I think there have been, obviously, and we covered it like at the time of the announcement, mate. We sort of went over some of the not so much horror stories, but in terms of price rises for season tickets and all this kind of stuff that had happened when he was at both the Red Bulls and the 76ers and everywhere where he's been, really. The Americanization of our sport is something that we should all be very aware of, and I think we even saw that before he even came in with last season's season ticket price hikes, and that's just going to be the beginning if we're completely honest. But I think, to be fair, I think this current badge has sort of grown on me a little bit, but I am hopeful that obviously for the 150 years it will be something special. And I've just looked at the badge again and I can see the one, so yeah, I'm clearly quite blind. So apologies on that, guys. But yeah, I think it's important that we stick the landing here, mate, isn't it? It's important that we stick the landing because everything that's happening on the pitch right now is great. It's all rosy. We're in a title race. We're in a Champions League race. It's all this. It's this sort of beautiful amalgamation of hard work over the past 18 months, and we're seeing the fruits of that. Villa have to get things right off the pitch because it has been absolutely stinking in aspects in the stadium, in how they've handled away tickets as well, and to see them do a 180 on that as well and go back to the old system so quickly after trying to implement a new one. We told you so, Villa. We told you so. But that's obviously a topic for a completely different video, mate. But I think it does lead us on to the news, obviously, from Chris Heck about the pausing of the sort of stadium redevelopment. And I'm interested to hear your take on this, mate, because again, another Twitter meltdown over the past few days. And for me, the only people that should be upset about this are the people who sit in the North Stand because it's a fucking disgrace. I had a season ticket in the North Stand for 3 years and the amenities are horrific. You can't get a beer on tap. There's food options are absolutely shocking. I'm 6'3". You can't sit down in them seats. My knees go 2 rows in front. Like I'm like someone's gonna have to go to a chiropractor if I had to sit down there. One of the main reasons why I ended up moving to the Holte end. The stand is not fit for purpose. Let's get that right. But everybody who's complaining about it seems to be worried about the Euros. So, like in my eyes, the only people who have the right to complain are the unfortunate folk that have to sit there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. We have quite literally suffered from our own success. Yeah, it seems. Chris Heck said himself that he believed it's important we take a step back and evaluate what's best. Said it would be a bad idea to look at tearing down one of our stands whilst we're playing so well. He said, going forward, everything should be about the fans. We are going to start renovating the warehouse area, which is a massive space that we feel can be a hospitality zone and an entertainment zone for 3,000 match-going fans. We are going to be doing lots of renovation and building up Bodymore Heath to build our academy and our women's programme to build more for our first team. So it looks like in light of how we're playing and everything like that, and kind of going back to what we were saying just now about the 150th anniversary celebrations, that if Villa do keep up this fantastic run of form, if we are able to see it out and, not necessarily even end up in a title race, but end up playing Champions League football, we saw that the capacity without the North Stand could drop to as low as 36,000. If we are in the Champions League, you want to be able to see as many fans go and experience that as possible. Champions League for the first time in, well, I don't actually know. Have we ever competed Champions League? I don't know. Obviously in the European Cup, but since it became the Champions League, I don't even know if Villa competed. It's maybe the first time ever in this edition of the competition. You want as many fans going to experience that as possible. And so whilst it is annoying, the club, Jacob Tanswell of The Athletic did a really great piece on this, said that Villa are hopeful that this decision won't impact their ability to be a host stadium for Euro 2028. But obviously what comes with that is that if these renovations on the stadium aren't going ahead, remains to be seen what's happening to the nearby train stations and everything like that. The club estimate that they think almost 80% of fans travelling to those games at the Euros, should they be held at Villa Park, will do so via public transport. So it kind of remains to be seen whether it will impact Whitton Station or Aston Station and everything like that, because if we are going to be getting 80% of traffic coming to the Villa for the Euros on public transport, those train stations definitely aren't fit for purpose. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of goes on there. But yeah, Villa probably suffering from our own success here. And whilst it's a little bit frustrating, you don't want to keep putting these things off and off and off. At some point, you do just need to bite the bullet and get it done, because it'll definitely be better on the other side. Maybe it's best to hold off. I'm not sure.
Do you think that the longer we postpone this and push this back, the more likely it is that Villa Park could move? Because there's been talks for the longest time about taking up the plot of the NEC, way better transport links, more frequent trains, easy accessible for cars, with the motorway being so close by. And obviously, it's a conversation that people don't really want to have. And if I'm being honest, I wouldn't ever want us to move away from Villa Park, but I think there is sort of credit to the argument that Villa Park in many ways is holding us back. Spurs have built a new stadium, albeit on the same plot of land right next to White Hart Lane. But, Arsenal moved out of Highbury. They've done all right. Just all right, I'd say. They've not won a league or anything like that, but a couple of FA Cups along the way. But, we've seen how long it's taken them to sort of pay that off as well. So, there's that aspect of it as well. And I find a lot of the talk of CPOs, compulsory purchase orders, quite grim, to be honest. I think a lot of people, let's call a spade. Aston is not the greatest place. It's not. It could do with some, a cash injection. But it makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable when we're talking about just picking up and moving people just for the sake of a football club. Who the fuck do you think you are to say that? That doesn't necessarily sit right with me. But if you are to stay at Villa Park, then maybe that is the only way to go forward. Do you know what I mean? It's a really difficult discussion to have. And yeah, I feel quite strongly about staying at Villa Park, but I feel even if you demolish Villa Park, to the grounds, and you resurrect a new stadium on the same plot, and maybe it's moved more towards the north where there's a bit more land and all that kind of thing. Maybe that's the best solution, but then you're trying to find a temporary stadium for probably the next 2 or 3 years, aren't you? And I don't think there's a right way of approaching it, really.
It's interesting, mate. I've for people that know me, I've had some family members and stuff like that kind of hold roles with the Villa, which I've seen them hold, relative seniority over Villa Park and everything like that. And so from their kind of first-hand experiences and what they've told me, Villa Park is just in a bad location. You're kind of penned in by houses and everything like that, which always causes problems when you're looking to expand. You're outside of the city centre, so the transport links aren't great. We've just spoken that they're a major part of the kind of renovations. We didn't actually own the stadium until NSWE kind of took in and brought that back to the club. So Villa is now the owner of Villa Park. And because you've got the Holte end and the North, the Trinity, there's all kind of a patchwork quilt, almost, Villa Park, of different eras and different building methods. And, I've kind of been told previously that if you're going to seriously look to upgrade Villa Park, the best thing that you can do is flatten it, because none of it is joined. All of the buildings are built at different times, they're different architects. And, if the people that have walked through Villa Park, which kind of I've been very fortunate to do, and not just the concourses and everything like that, but the bits underground, there's this quite amazing space actually under the whole thing called the Moon inside the club. And it's because underneath the content, there's just this big concrete space where it's almost like a museum in a way. There's like different relics of just bits of shrapnel from the clubs gone by. So there's like the old stained glass windows under there. You walk under there and there's like bits from the UEFA Cup when we were competing that like back in 2008. It's really odd, but it's like, because it's all built on different levels. The stadium's actually built on a slant as well. So I think from the Holte end down to the north, it's actually it's uphill technically or something like that. It's a really difficult stadium to kind of build on. And so the more that we kind of keep doing this and adding a new stand and adding a bit here and joining these bits here, we're kind of only adding to that, as I say, that patchwork quilt feel to the stadium, which obviously going forward, I imagine you're only creating problems for yourself further and further down the line. I know that there were really early talks kind of around the Commonwealth Games about moving to the renovated Alexandra Stadium, a la Man City and the Etihad, as was the City of Manchester Stadium when Manchester had the Commonwealth Games in 2002, I think. So there's been a lot of talk about this, and there's been several different iterations of the plans for Villa Park. I know this is kind of first up, but yeah, it's not a great stadium for what we want it to be. But perhaps we're saved by the 150th anniversary celebrations there, mate, in that it doesn't feel very paying homage to our history to announce that we're moving 10 miles across the city.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I saw some really interesting AI mock-ups of like red brick stadiums, which got me thinking, that'd be quite nice. I think if you're going to rebuild Villa Park, you have to pay tribute to the traditional red brick, the stained glass and the whole, the old sort of Trinity reception area, all that kind of stuff. But it's difficult because I think ultimately, like, this is a conversation that us as fans will never truly appreciate or understand, because, and we've said it before, we're like, why don't we just fill in the corners? Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just do that? The club has to, Villa Park has to be a vessel that can actually make money for the club, like, realistically, just in the kind of the climate that we're in and where we're looking to sort of compete. When I say the climate, I just mean football in general. You need to generate revenue, and there's people that have boxes at Villa Park that I'm sure they're paying probably like £30,000 for, but they're going to want boxes that are £100,000, £150,000, £200,000, and like, currently, would anybody pay that at Villa Park? Probably not, because of not only the amenities but the quality of service. I know that's something that's constantly brought up as well. It feels like, and it's not the staff's fault, because it's sort of part-time agency work. These are just uni students. We've all been there and done that sort of job, mate. They're in once every 2 weeks, so there's no procedure taught. There's no sort of rhythm. Like, all that kind of stuff is all obviously that you get from doing sort of regular work, all that kind of stuff. Like, the service isn't great at Villa Park, and everyone, I think that's universally recognised. It's not a controversial thing to say. But you would think that with improved hospitality facilities, all that, Villa have their own staff doing it, maybe, so they can train them, all that kind of stuff. That makes people feel like they're getting better value for money. And ultimately, to go back to Arsenal had to move out of Highbury so as they could build all them boxes in the Emirates and build that, albeit soulless bowl. They needed to generate, money through corporate sponsorship that way. So, Yeah, it's difficult, and I think again, like, as somebody who isn't somebody who sits in corporate ever and like doesn't really give a fuck about that, I guess it's hard for us to understand. Addressing you, the listeners, but at the end of the day, the sponsorships that they can gain from that, the sort of business deals that they can do as a result of it, will take priority over us enjoying the nice old fashioned Holte, and it's sad, but it's obviously something that we have to acknowledge, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I saw a really interesting take on this, and I usually like to credit these people that I see like social content from, but they were kind of saying that like if you take away the soul of a football club, supporting a football club nowadays just basically, I think their wording was, you basically support a FTSE 500 company, hopefully that they become a FTSE 100 company. You're basically you're looking at, and you just celebrate wealth. And if you take away all of the emotion from football and all of those like historic elements to it and everything like that, it's the corporate elements of the game do just take over. And so I think it's important to kind of have that in mind. And maybe, I know this sounds potentially crazy to say, but maybe one day if we ever did move to a soulless bowl at the Alexandra Stadium or something like that, I don't know. You'd maybe miss your knees being a little bit cramped in the north.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
No, absolutely.
Like sometimes the stadium's antiquities and uniquities that once were an inconvenience, that if you ever did, you look at West Ham, I dare say, you ask anyone that goes to the London Stadium on a weekend, they'd all love to be cramped back at Upton Park on Saturday at 3:00 rather than. And so I think there is definitely a case that maybe we have to be careful what we wish for, but you just have to trust the club to handle it correctly ultimately. And I think the anniversary stadium, as I say, to kind of come back to my previous point, show that the club is very aware of that. And I think the historic feel that we're going with everything suggests that they would. I think if we're getting pushed towards, edgy and dramatic and modern minimalism and everything like that, then maybe we'd have cause for concern. But at the moment, it looks like we should be okay.